Good afternoon. This is David Perlman and
Heather Cox.
today we are doing office hours. With us today is Justin from CoreBts. Justin, I will turn it over to you, and I look forward to learning more about AI Builder and Power Automate. So I'll give you the floor.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. As many of you have probably met with us before a couple weeks ago, maybe some have not. Last time we talked, or I talked with all of you, we talked a lot about Power Automate in Microsoft Teams when it comes to the EDU space. In talking with David, we wanted to sort of further those sort of sessions and talk to the group in a couple more sessions really around Power Automate and specifically around AI Builder, what it's capable of, the interface, some use cases, etc. Today, what we'll be covering is sort of just dipping our toes into that. I'll first go over a high-level overview of Power Automate itself in context of AI Builder. Then we'll talk about there's a sort of a vernacular around AI Builder between pre-built and custom models. We'll talk about what those mean, what those are, how you can leverage them, what they can do. And then we'll actually just really quickly jump into demonstration, showing you really how the AI Builder interface sort of slots into the overall Power Automate interface, how it works, etc. And then in the next session, which I'll sort of tease for next week, we'll really be diving into use cases, whether it be an example one we come up with or one from the community. We can really drive that from here on out. But those are really what I'll be talking about. If you haven't been introduced to me before, I am Justin Snyder. I'm a senior solutions architect with CoreBts in our Microsoft collaborations practice. A lot of what we do is strategy design for customers to help get into Office 365 and Microsoft 365, do migrations, do net new strategy design. So exciting to be meeting with everyone today. So Power Automate AI Builder. Power Automate itself is a solution that's existed for obviously a few years now within the Microsoft stack. Started off as Microsoft Flow and more recently has been rebranded. If you're not familiar with the solution, it really is a low-code, no-code solution, I guess, for developing really workflow process and automated type of solutions. It already has a lot of built-out connectors with both internal and external parties and applications, things like social media platforms, other business platforms, internal like things like CRM, Microsoft Forms, etc. But ultimately allows you to sort of take data and information and move it around your different pieces of applications to sort of get things done. AI Builder really sort of, like I said, slots into that, into the overall Power Automate interface. AI Builder, just like Power Automate, is no code. It's really focused on bringing sort of insights and intelligence that to your processes and to your applications, things that humans can do, but much like a normal like approval process humans can do that we would automate in Power Automate. There's also things around prediction and analysis and sort of data entry that we can accelerate by using tools and models that either have been built out by Microsoft already that we can leverage, or that we can actually build ourselves to sort of adapt and sort of increase the potential of any of the flows or apps we're building within the Power Platform. AI Builder itself, it's really great, but ultimately, when it comes down to many of you, you're probably your first question or your big question is, okay, but I want to use AI Builder, but what do how do I actually use that in my app or within my flow or whatever? Leveraging AI Builder in your app or your flow is rather simple. You can see here in the screenshot is just the actual Power Apps AI Builder interface. This is also what you would see in Flow on the left, and I'll reiterate this in the demonstration. You'll see a little section that says AI Builder.
Hey, Justin, you're not showing anything.
I apologize. Can we see now?
I believe we can. Yes, there we go.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Glad. Before that, it was just little overview slides. I'll also send out this presentation after. But really, what we got to is right here, understanding how you actually incorporate AI Builder to your flows or apps. First, you have to understand what type of model you want to be leveraging in this flow, in this app, or whatever. You want to have the data and be able to connect to that data to leverage that AI model. You then, if leveraging custom models, you also need to tailor and train that model to do the things that you want it to do. This is where some more manual effort comes in, but you're ultimately basically teaching the AI and how to process things and how to go through sort of the manual process in an automated way. And then finally, the last piece is actually using those insights that those models can provide to you in flows and in apps. And in the demonstration, I'll go into that. When it comes to pre-built models, this is I actually want to call that out. I mentioned before that in the AI builder space, we have these concepts of models, and there's two types of models. There's what we call pre-built models and custom models. The naming makes it pretty simple to understand what they really are. Pre-built models are models that already exist in the Microsoft space, have already been sort of tailored to certain types of functionality or certain focuses, so that they're honestly, from my experience, pretty accurate and pretty successful at doing what they say. They cover many different types of, I would say, actions or categories. Many times based off of text analysis or vision and vision API analysis. They can do things, and the models that exist are listed here. But things like business card readers to get information for business cards, text recognition to actually process text. Even more associated with text is actually extracting key phrases from like paragraph text or language detection or actually text translation. You can do receipt processing. So if you're even using it personally to help do expenses, this is actually something that you could really leverage to do that. Sentiment analysis. So understanding, and I know we talked about this last time around like professor evaluations, right? You could provide sort of overall text evaluations around professors and run it through sentiment analysis and understand at a high level really how the sentiment is positive or negative towards certain key aspects of even not even professors, but different tests, different quizzes, work, etc. So these are the different pre-built models, but the key point here is that again, pre-built models are really already pre-set up, and when we get into the demo, there isn't much you do to sort of engage them other than really leverage them within Flow or within the apps that you're using. We also have custom models. Custom models sort of are really similar to pre-built models, but they really are sort of the root or the core at what those pre-built models are built on. But they really do sort of identify some of the core, I would say the core low-hanging fruit for easy use cases within any organization. So you think about, like, a big one is forms processing, and that's actually one of the examples in the demo I'm going to be showing today. Being able to take whether it's a digital form or an actual printed form that's scanned in or what have you, being able to take forms and instead of using a person to manually do data entry, being able to process that form with the AI builder model based off of a custom model that you define, where you take sort of examples of a certain form and identify where different data points are, and then it from there can train itself so that it can do that going forward. And so you no longer have to necessarily be the person or have a person doing any sort of a manual data entry. Those types of different models exist again in different ways. I mentioned form processing. There's also, you can leverage custom models for prediction. So you can take a data set, say an example of, like, let's say quizzes, and for a certain person, and you have say 10 quizzes, and you get the score or the grade the person got on those 10 quizzes and the topics maybe of those quizzes. You could then say, hey, I have this next quiz that has these topics, and then you could actually use prediction to possibly detect, oh, okay, how well do we think the class is going to perform on this test given the certain topics. object detection using really the Vision API. You can actually take a picture and identify certain types of objects, and then knowing after you've trained a model to detect those objects, you can use that sort of AI to sort of not only detect those objects in other images, but also count things in images. Forms processing, I mentioned, entity extraction and category classification. This is actually sometimes useful in combination with forms processing. Entity extraction allows you to understand, for example, um, not only what the values or what the actual text is in a form necessarily, but also what sort of data types are on that form. For example, with entity extraction, you can say, oh, this is a date time. Oh, this is an address. This is X. With forms processing, you would say, oh, we see the address and it is 4107 Willow Street, Microsoft Way, or something like that. So using a combination of these models, you can actually help accelerate some of the processes that you're doing again with flow and apps and et cetera. So from there, I actually want to really bring you all into the interface and sort of dip your toes into that, and show you the different pre-built and custom models, actually show an example of each one of those really quickly. And then from there, like I said, at the next session, we'll get to sort of dive into sort of developing an actual use case. So can you all still see my screen? I just want to confirm.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what you see here is the Power Automate. Actually, I'll bring it actually to the Power Automate home. This is something that many of you are probably familiar with if you've worked with Power Automate. It's very simple: home, action, flows, create. It's pretty straightforward. In recent times, there's another section in here called AI Builder, and that's really obviously the topic that we've been talking about. And there's two sections under that. Really, these sections are pretty similar and simple when we talk about what you can do, and really it's just down to, okay, work, right? On the build section, you'll see a lot of what I was showing in the presentation. It's not really clear in this interface what is a custom model and what is a pre-built model, but overall you can see since they're not pre-built and Microsoft hasn't already done that work for you. Want to do need example. And then it comes to the point where it's okay, let's add some documents. So I have Also having an issue. I apologize about that. But from here, what we can do is I will show you this. So what you can see here is an example invoice, right? So we can see on this invoice, we have an invoice number, we have an address for a bill to, balance due. We can even see the different services that are in this invoice, et cetera, et cetera. What we can see here, if I click on see details, we can see the fields that the model was able to detect. And we can see here we have things like invoice, date, due date, bill to address, balance due, subtotal, text, a lot of these fields that we saw here on this screen. So at this point, what you can do with this model, and I apologize, it's for some reason not actually going through the analysis part, but to talk through really how that works at a high level, what happens is when you sort of edit this and you edit the actual model, you'll click analyze, and it'll actually bring up an interface where it brings up boxes around each one of these. And then, all right, it's just not working for me today, I guess. But it'll bring up different boxes and it'll show the it'll show that it identified a certain data set, and it'll say this we see this is labeled invoice. Do you want to do invoice? And it'll say yes. Once you go through and you sort of mark all those, you click you click train, and it'll take some time, and it'll begin to train off the different samples that you provided and confirm your model against what you identified. So what's nice about this is that once you do complete this, these fields and this sort of model that you have here can be leveraged in things like Power Automate and Power Apps. So if let's see if I can do a test on this model. So I uploaded an invoice here, and it's yelling at me, but we can go through this process. If I now leverage the flow, so say I wanted to build a flow and process those invoices and run them into a Microsoft a SharePoint list, right? So I could take this and I'll show an example of one that ran. So leveraging AI Builder within Power Automate is pretty simple and straightforward. It's just another action within Power Automate. You can see here, we set this up to manually trigger a flow when an object is uploaded. You could do this on many different things, but I uploaded a PDF. You can see here, it went and we took that AI Builder action, and I'll show adding that as an action, how that really works. It pulls in and takes all those different inputs. We can see the shipping bounding box, the subtotal, and it's pulling all of that data from that form. I will scroll down. And then from here, you're just pretty simply, I'm taking that and I'm just creating a SharePoint item in a list. And we can see here that I'm adding it's taking in the title and taking an invoice number, taking the due date and taking the balance due. So if I actually edit this, we can see here that I'm selecting when you want to use a custom model that you've developed, they show up here, and you can say process and save information from forms. And so you would have to know sort of what the core custom model you've used. But when you select that, you then get to select that model you define. So that this name matches what you've sort of created the name as under the model. So you select that. You also then can take inputs. The two inputs that you would need for the form processing is the form type and also the actual document itself. We're getting that from our input. And then from there, those fields then become that you sort of set up in your model available as dynamic content in Microsoft Flow. So you can see here those same values around the bill to address, the subtotal value, the total value, the tax, the due date, etc., all become fields that we can sort of leverage now in this. So To sort of use an example, after it saves, I'll just run from a past test. And we're catching errors everywhere today. Apparently, it's not liking licensing for some reason. But we can see here that I'll just go to the past run that I ran a couple hours ago. And we can see here that those fields are there. And then if I go to the SharePoint list, we see as well that the new item has been added. We have the invoice number, the due date, and the balance due. I sort of just use some dummy columns, but really your capabilities are endless with this. You can actually format these as number fields and convert those values that you get from your forms to actual integers and then do calculations based off of whatever. The core piece here is that you're getting this information out from the form. Additionally, another model or another example that we created is through like just providing feedback, being able to say, hey, I want to provide feedback, whether it be like, for example, the EDU example to about a professor to maybe a director or whatever. And as a director, I want to be able to culminate those reviews and sort of understand the sentiment as a whole, and sort of have those maybe for like either quarterly or yearly reviews or whatever with the different professors. So as a quick example, um, if we look at this flow, we can see here some other general actions to help coordinate this one. But basically, I just said, hey, when I get an email, get my information, take the email text and take the email and convert it to plain text. That's one thing that's important when doing any sort of text analysis. You want to convert that to plain text so that the models can actually sort of parse that. When you go through sentiment analysis, it's pretty simple. You set your language. There's different language codes depending on the language. This EN is for English. You then take the input for that value, which is that plain text. I also wanted to get some key phrases from the text. So when a person writes a review, a lot of times they could be a sentence, many sentences, or many paragraphs. So being able to have like a summary of like the key points of that feedback can be super important. So I want to get the key phrases from that text. It pulls out multiple, so I have to go through sort of an apply to each to sort of append those into a string. You could put these into a table and format them more prettily if you wanted to, but for the purposes of the demonstration, I just added them into a string. And then from there, I can just sort of send it as a push notification, add it again to a SharePoint list, a Microsoft list maybe, or another location. And we can see here that if I go, and I'm just going to go to the test I ran 5 hours ago because I have a feeling that my live test would not run. And we can see here that in this test, I sent a new email, and it's starting to create all these pieces. And we can see here, if we take the HTML, let me use the one before that because that's actually an added to a group email. There we go. So we can see here that I provided some an email to say, hey, I wanted to give some kudos to Professor Mr. Smith. His ability to teach the class through remote methods has been best out of any of my classes. And so we take that text from that email. If we look here, this is sort of the email that were provided. And we analyze that through the sentiment. We can see here that it provides us some values out of that. You can see here the probability that the text is negative is 0. That's pretty good if you want some positive reviews. And the 99% chance that overall the text is positive. So it's overall saying that this is a positive review. And then also some key phrases. We want to know, like I said, some key phrases out of that. It goes through and it takes that email, and you can see here it found the best and remote methods and kudos and all those different pieces. And so Now, if we look at that push notification, we can say, hey, student said professor feedback, their sentiment is positive, and they said that it was the best with remote methods, and we want to give them kudos and thanks. And so, with those models, and again, like I said, you can tailor those and really train those to specifically what you need, but you're able to get and take that input and sort of leverage it in really anything in the Power Platform at that point, because it's really just leveraging a REST API and being consumed with a flow action. So using those, like I said, is super simple. Again, you just set your language and then you really parse that through here. If I wanted to add sort of another model as an example, I'll click on AI Builder. You'll see here a lot of the pre-built models show up here. So if you look at, for example, like the sentiment one, it's analyze positive and negative sentiment. We have the classified text. We have the detect and count, so the object identification and images. We can see extract key phrases. We can see the predict, and really you just have all the different items that you could leverage, including your custom models, within a Power Automate flow. Honestly, like I said, and like we talked about last week, the possibilities with this are endless. We can use this with, as you've seen here, not only a professor evaluations, but even at the level of like peer evaluations, peer reviews. You could do this at even at the finance departments within EDU space for forms processing. Really, like I said, those possibilities are endless, and diving into this is really straightforward and simple. It's just like I said, either leveraging a pre-built model, which at that point you can just leverage directly right in Flow automatically, or building a custom one, which apologies for it not working today, but it really that process from where we were at is only about 2 more steps. So I'll try and get that for next week just to sort of review. But again, you just go through this and let's see if it lets me again one more time. Maybe not, but you click analyze, and then from here it analyzes those documents. You confirm what it analyzed, and then it just trains, and then your model's good to go. So apologies that it wasn't working right now, but I'll make sure that we're good to go for next week, and we'll make sure to cover that. It seems like it's not liking something with licensing, something that plagues many of us in times before. So we'll get that worked out. But if you guys have any questions about that, I know that was pretty brief, and we are at the 30-minute mark. But I'll provide the presentation that we had and that we presented to, and then we'll also sort of, like I said, dive deeper into actually building this out in a use case next week. And we'll go through, like I said, we'll use a custom model. I'll show you at that point adding documents and leveraging the ability to analyze and then train and tailor that model, and then leveraging that in a flow. So at that point, before I drop, I'm going to ask if there's any questions specific to what I showed today, and then we'll go from there. Thanks, everyone.
So I bet you there's a ton of questions. One quick one, somebody got in early before we let you go. So there's a lot in there, right? So we might have to dissect that a little bit, right, as we were looking at that, Justin. When you were showing these features, I know I specifically asked you not to get into licensing today. Was there anything outside of a normal Power Automate license, or in terms of like the AI builder?
Yeah, so there is specific AI builder licensing. I, to be honest, don't know how it works with the EDU SKUs and everything. So I would actually lean on you all to sort of.
We'll get you an answer.
Heck yeah, I love it.
Learn. So here's an example where we're mixing a couple things, right? So there's a bunch of modern workplace stuff. There's also some Azure Cognitive Analytics that are also going in there, which is kind of where some of the AI builder sits. But again, a lot of folks have an Azure subscription, and they can get access, especially in EDU, because we do give a fair amount of functionality away. Unless you know the answer off the top of your head, Heather.
Well, I do not.
See,
awesome. Got some homework.
But I'm okay to admit that I don't know.
So if anybody, Justin, I know you have to run. So hey, thanks for taking us through that. I know there's a ton of stuff, and we probably have questions. So maybe next week we'll spend, maybe we'll start at 4:25 or something, cover a couple of questions, and then we'll get into the next session. Because again, for some of the folks, there might be a lot of new pieces here. We've looked at flow separately. We've looked at some of the cognitive analytics way back when. So we'll keep that in mind. In some ways, less is more. I think if we maybe get into the nuances a little bit, that'll be super helpful in terms of the use case and kind of where we're pulling from. But thank you very much. It was great. Really appreciate you
Of course.
diving in.
Of course. And I also, I had my director, Jerry, join on. So if any questions come up technically through the next 30 minutes as well, he can answer some, maybe not specifically to this session, right? But he can provide anything from Power Automate and AI Builder. So again, I'm getting called into this next call, so I do have to jump. But I really do thank everyone for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'll talk to you all next week. Thanks,
We
everyone.
appreciate it, Justin.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See ya. All right. We're going to stop.